Hey, how we doing there? This is Two Dudes and Killer Tunes, episode 1. We finally got it going here. So I'm Cal.
And I'm Neil.
Neil, it's good to see you tonight.
Nice to see you, brother.
It's good to have you over in the basement recording the episode 1.
Uh-huh.
So I'm Cal, I'm actually host of the show, and Neil co-host. Neil, we met like 30 years ago, right? I was thinking about this the other day, how we first met. I just remember I was a freshman at UAD, University of Detroit Mercy, and I forget, you showed up. I think, why were you there?
Well, on a recruiting trip.
Okay,
right?
that's right. That's right.
1994, I think it was the winter of 94 going into 95. I graduated high school in 95, but yeah, came up for a recruiting trip. And
that's right. And you were born in Michigan.
Yeah.
But then you moved out to the AZ, right? Arizona.
Arizona.
How old were you when you moved to Arizona?
16 going on 17, going
Okay.
into my junior year of high school, yeah.
Okay, so you spent a couple of years in Arizona for high school, and then, you was it your junior year? You visited UAD,
Yeah.
Because you were maybe going to come play soccer there.
Sure.
I was already on the team. That was my freshman year. I remember you showing up. You were there for the whole weekend. You stayed with us, Reno Basement. Shout out to Reno Basement. And we went to a party. We went to the Sig Pi party. You know, the fraternity on campus always had good parties. But I remember, if I remember right, you were on your best behavior.
Yes. I got in a little bit of trouble, if you will, drinking. And then I was like, you know what? On this trip, I'm not going to do any drinking.
But you did a lot of reading. If I remember
Yes.
right, you finished the entire Fab Four book written by Mitch Albom.
Yep.
That weekend.
Yep. Didn't drink it all, but definitely got my reading in.
But no, so since then, obviously we've known, obviously you made the decision to go to UAD. We played soccer there together for a couple of years, and remained friends now for like 30 years, right?
Sure.
And the one thing that I always remember, that kind of bringing us together or whatever was music, and really specifically live music. Going to concerts and checking out shows and stuff, right? For me, it started back in, it was actually 1990. I was 15 years old, and I went to the Palace of Auburn Hills, which is no longer with us, R.I.P.,
Yes.
the Palace.
Good.
But it was Aerosmith with Joan Jett opening up, and, that was the Pump Tour. Janie's Got a Gun and everything, and absolutely amazing. It just blew me away, and like from that point forward, it was just like I couldn't stop going to shows. What do you remember? What your first show was that kind of got you all jazzed up?
Well, it was a really good band that I saw. I think about the year 1994 when I was out in Arizona, called Gin Blossoms.
Oh,
Wow! I think you might all know that sweet band from Arizona, a local band, and
was it Hey Jealousy? Is that
Hey Jealousy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, one thing I'll say is it's something I've never held against you, and I won't still to this day. But no.
Well, let me just say something. I won't hold it against you, but going to see Aerosmith, because I'm going to be on the wrong here. Or Aerosmith, I could
Take them or leave them.
Yeah, I could deal without Aerosmith.
I can see that.
I mean. Great music, blah blah blah. Great. There's a couple great songs, but most of them, hey, I'm not a big Aerosmith fan. Whatever.
That's not the first time I heard that. To be honest,
I mean,
but you know what? When it comes to live shows, the key is you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
It's the journey from there where you go, right?
Sure.
So. The concept of Two Dudes and Killer Tunes, where did it come from? So, like I mentioned, since that time in 1990, I've probably been to a couple hundred shows. And I know I've probably told you this in the past, where I used to actually write down every single show I ever went to, where it was at, who I went with, and just like little notes or anecdotes about it.
Sure.
Like funny little quips, right? And it was always my intent. I was going to write, you know, the best book of like these short stories about these concerts. And you know what?
I would have loved to read that book. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what happened is I stopped taking notes. I threw those away and realized making a book was going to be way too hard. But, you know, here we are, you know, in the times of technology. I'm like, hey, what about a podcast? And then when I was thinking about kind of the format of it, you know, I thought about having guests come on, talking to them, catching up, you know, shows we maybe went to together, or, you know, any shows you've been to, you know, special things. And I thought about, well, you know, I don't want to sit and listen to myself ramble this whole time.
Sure.
So who better to be a co-host? That's when I thought of you, naturally.
Who listened to myself?
And so, you know, to me, it was really, I think we started talking about this, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, max.
Yeah.
And it's obviously been moving at lightning speed, and here we are recording episode 1, and I couldn't be more excited.
I agree. I mean, which is cool. You came to me and I'm like, called me up and he's like, hey dude, do you want to do it? I mean, I've always been, you know, writing notes and wanted to write a book, and then I'm like, let's just do a podcast. And you called me, I'm like, you know what, that sounds like a pretty good idea, you know.
Well, the first thing I think you said was, well, I'm not real sure what kind of time I can commit to it.
Sure. Oh yeah, I mean,
no, which is understandable, right?
Fair
we're all
enough.
busy,
I mean,
but no, I think once we're like started talking about it, we're like, no, I mean, it's going to be something kind of informal. We'll just kind of, it's really us. One, gives us a reason to get together more often, see each other, and then two, you know, be able to kind of catch back up with people we haven't talked to in years.
And that's, you know, and I think of, you know, getting your, you know, out on the Odyssey, or not Odyssey, but the app out, or the podcast out. Sorry, bros. But yeah, that's what it is, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've started our company page and kind of getting people interested in looking at it and stuff, and you know, it's been fun so far, and you know what, I'm really looking forward to it. We have some people that, you know, I used to, well, I'll say still friends with, but I haven't talked to in like 30 years almost. It's going to be a collection of people we haven't talked to in ages. It's going to be people we went to college with, that we played soccer with, went to some shows with. It's going to be friends and family and everything else throughout the, you know, this journey, right? So the other question I always get is, why two dudes, right? And killer tunes. Well, I mean, you remember the whole way we came up with two dudes, right? Way back in our early 20s. It was, you know, after a long night of partying, right, at 8146, Gary, and I think everyone else has kind of already passed out for the night, and me and you ended up in the basement looking at this wall of about 500 CDs.
Which was your brother.
Yep, my brother's place.
My
brother's place, my brother's collection.
Sure,
yeah,
and then
absolutely.
Your collection wasn't too bad either. You know, you didn't.
You know, I would say I maybe had some more of the obscure stuff, or
Sure.
he just had the overall massive collection.
And I think two dudes, like you said, we made a mixtape, if you will.
It was going to be the best mixtape ever made, right? And do you remember, we actually had rules that went along with this mixtape. We were serious about this. And when we say mixtape, we really mean tape. It was a cassette. It wasn't like burn on a CD. This was old school. Do you remember like any of those rules at all?
Well, of course, I remember the one rule was one band per side, if you will, right?
Correct.
So you can't have, you know,
the same band couldn't be on one side twice.
Yes,
right?
on one side twice. Yeah,
and if they were going to be on both sides, it sure as hell better be a very special band.
It should be a very band or good song, you know.
So I remember staying up literally all night. It was a 120-minute cassette tape, 60 minutes each side, and it was like trying to figure out the cure to cancer. Like what songs and what only what song, but what order are we going to put them in? Because you don't want to have too many slow ones.
I love the way you said that because it was
meticulous.
Yes,
it wasn't just thrown
yep.
together. And do you remember any songs that were on that? Because again, this was damn near 25 years ago.
Well, we had Jane Says, which is a brilliant song. By Jane's Addiction. If you don't know that song, then maybe
maybe you need to get out there a little bit. Yeah,
maybe not listen to music. But
and that's actually one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah,
and,
Jesus.
When my daughter was born, I actually had the privilege of coming up with the middle name. So I actually came up with the name Jane. Mainly due to that song, Jane Says by Jane's Addiction, but also another one of my favorites, Sweet Jane by Lou Reed, Velvet Underground.
That's too good. I love.
The one that I remember being on the tape was Perfect Day by Lou Reed.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Lou. And I always love that song, and it's actually in one of my favorite movies of all time, Trainspotting.
Oh.
And, I know you've seen that movie. We went to the theater and saw it at Laurel Park, I think.
No. I think it was Civic.
Oh.
Farmington
you're right.
Civic.
Right. It was the Farmington
Trainspotting. Oh,
and,
my Lord.
In that scene, it was Rent Boy. Rents is ODing, and they were playing Perfect Day.
Yeah.
And I remember that song being on there specifically.
Oh, love me some Lou Reed. Hell yeah.
Fast forward about 3 years from then, we ended up in that same scenario, remember? We're in that same basement, 8146, those same CDs, and we kind of had our Godfather Part 2 moment, right? We're going to come up with an even better mixtape, simply called...
Two Dudes Part 2.
Yep. And then, so we were talking, 3-4 weeks ago about putting this podcast together. And, at that point, it just kind of clicked. Of course, it's got to have two dudes in there.
Yeah.
And, we even talked about, should it be Two Dudes Part 3, But we were...
Fair enough. I'm glad we called it Two Dudes and Killer Tunes.
Absolutely. Because you know what? It helps kind of encompass for us it's the live shows and those killer tunes that you see when you're there. And the ones that you remember, there's certain shows, but not just certain shows, but certain songs where you're sitting there and it's just like, oh, I will never forget this moment, right? And actually, I'm going to bring it up right now. The one that with you specifically was just last May when we went to Columbus. We saw Smashing Pumpkins after I don't know how many years. It's been a long time since we've seen them. And me, you, and my brother Paul went to Columbus. Yeah. Kemba Live, great outdoor little venue. And they played Drown. One of those songs that just resonates and just, you'll never forget.
Well, I would say the last time we saw Smashing Pumpkins was,
I know when it was, yeah. It was at the Fox Theater.
Yeah.
Yep. And it was when Billy Corgan and Jimmy Chamberlain came back together.
Uh-huh.
And then this time, though, we actually had James Eha join in the fold. So, but you're right. That was probably 2007-ish, maybe.
I was gonna say 2000. Right I was gonna say 4, but 7. Okay, yep. You're probably
give or take.
You'd say he has a bit better memory than I do. Whatever. Cal.
So the biggest question I have: we made only 2 copies of Two Dudes and Two Dudes Part 2. I know I haven't seen a copy in ages. Have you seen one? Do you have any idea where those things are at?
No.
That's a shame.
And then we started this out with the Two Dudes and the songs that were on there. And I'm going to say, Jane Says was on there. We had Perfect Day. What were the other songs that were on there?
I know that I'm pretty sure Fish, Bouncing Around the Room, was on there. I can guarantee you probably something like Pearl Jam Black was probably on there. Right?
Pearl Jam Black was on there. Fair enough. But
maybe even something like a Blues Traveler, I Have My Moments.
Yeah, Blues Travelers. Blues Travelers are a damn good freaking band, by the way.
So, but rather than talking about all those olden times, let's talk about some other things here.
What do you have?
Well, what about? Do you actually remember the first show that we ever went to together? I was trying to rack my brain. I don't think I remember. We've been to a lot, but I don't remember that first one. Do you remember what it was?
Well, as far as like a big show, I'll say we went and maybe saw Red Eye, Ludwig.
Yeah.
And
our buddy's band, local band.
Yeah.
They used to play around the local bars.
maybe at that freaking band or that venue. What was it? Not
Harpo's.
Harpo's
or like Caju Cafe. They used to play all over the Detroit bar scene.
Sure.
And I used to love going to their shows. Because one, we knew the guys in the band, right?
Right.
And they rocked, right? You had
Yeah.
Giovanni on guitar, Robbie singing, Carl on drums.
Carl.
Yeah. I used to love watching Carl play those drums. But
Play those drums.
I want to say that's probably the first live show we went to.
That we went together. After that, maybe I would say we did do a Horde Fest or with Dave Matthews or
Horde Fest and Dave Matthews.
I think Dave Matthews probably.
And
I mean, I'm not gonna.
And you know what? And remember, we used to go and we would camp out.
Gosh.
We'd go see him at Pine Knob in the summer. We'd go camp out. And head to the show. Oh my God, those were the times, huh?
That camp out. We've had a couple good camp outs.
Absolutely.
A couple where we might have done some, if you will. Don't want to, but
we partied a little bit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we partied a little bit.
And had some good times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, the one, usually we would go and it would be like a group of people, sometimes like it seems like 4 or 5, 8 of us, out there and we're just having a great time, especially the summer shows, Pine Knob, right? 15,000 seats, you got the lawn, the pavilion. But I also remember the smaller venues, the Majestic Theater.
Sure.
Or, seeing Rusted Root. I mean, how many times were we seeing those guys? And
good.
For everyone out there who's like, oh, who's Rusted Root? Well, one, if you have kids and have watched Ice Age or watched TV and seen any commercials, Send Me On My Way is like all over the place.
Shout out to Savvy, by the way. Savvy On My Way.
And the thing is, they are probably like one of the funnest bands to see live.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I think I've probably seen them close to 10 times, and you've been there almost every single time with me. And one, just the musicality, I'll say. I mean, the different instruments they play, and it's just a fun time.
Right.
Always a fun time, but there's very few times where just me and you have gone to a concert. When you really think about it, But
just us two without a crowd or a group.
Yeah, without a group of people. But you know what? I do remember one time. And do you remember which one it is?
I think I know.
Which one?
Oysterhead.
Let's see if Oysterhead? Yeah. Absolutely. We went and saw Oysterhead at the Hill Auditorium in Ann Arbor. And it was November of 2001. I remember it was cold out, right? I remember us going, and I forget the name of the bar we hit up, but we go to the bar, we walk over to Hill Auditorium, and we're feeling no pain.
No pain.
And we're in the venue, and we're smoking cigarettes or whatever, and which no one liked us for that in the first place.
Oh yeah.
And then we're sitting there, and next thing you know, we dropped one in the seat in front of us. Remember that lady had her coat there. And we started kind of freaking out a little bit, like we're going to start this big fire. So I remember, taking our beers. And we were just like dumping them on there and patting it out to make sure. But the Oysterhead, though, right? So for people who aren't familiar, Oysterhead was really like a super group.
Yes.
It was just a trio. It was Trey Anastasio from Fish.
Which is go ahead.
Guitarist and vocalist. And then you have Les Claypool, the bass player and vocalist from Primus. And then, of course, Stuart Copeland on drums from the Police.
The Police.
Yep. And, I mean, which it seems like kind of an odd fit, right?
Very odd, right?
And the only thing I remember saying was, as long as Sting ain't there, it's got to be a good show. But it was amazing because, I mean,
Fuck
just
Sting.
just the between Trey's guitar and Les Claypool's bass. I mean, it was an amazing show.
Unreal. I love it.
Now, thinking of, the past concerts, but more recently, I mentioned the Smashing Pumpkins in Columbus. That was a great show. Me, you, and my brother Paul, road trip to Columbus. I remember we got there early so we could check out the Champions League final, which was who played in that?
Liverpool,
and was it?
I think
Real
was
Madrid?
it Real Madrid? I don't know.
But Liverpool took the L, right?
Yeah, Liverpool.
We were all
lost.
disappointed. And then we walked over to Kemba Live, which that has got to be one of my favorite venues of all time.
Kemba Live. You've been there a couple times, right?
Yep.
I've been for the first time. Kemba Live was sweet. It's a mini like Meadowbrook, if you will, in Michigan, Meadowbrook. But
it's
in the city.
Yeah, right.
Like not
Literally,
Meadowbrook and Rochester, but it's a
right
Kemba
in downtown Columbus.
Yeah, it's a cool little venue.
It was about 5,000 total people between the hill and kind of the...
Yeah, I guess we had the hill seats, if you will.
Well, actually, we could go down into the pit area, but, we're just like, we're good up here. It's so small. It's like right there anyway.
Even where we were at, there's like a little platform where we were at, remember? And I remember shining my camera down and, capturing,
but
Billy Corgan and Smashing Pumpkins.
Seeing that show with you and my brother, it was literally like we were transported back 25 years.
Sure.
Love that. I love it. And then the other one was really just about a month after that. We went to Pine Knob and saw the Lumineers.
Oh, yeah.
And, Lumineers out, I believe, the Denver area. Great band, especially great live band. A lot of fun.
Is that where they're from?
Mm-hmm.
Denver?
And
I didn't even know.
And
not that I...
That was the first time I've been back to Pine Knob since it's actually called Pine Knob again, because it was DT forever.
Yeah, it was DT.
All us old timers always called it Pine Knob.
We all know.
I remember my kids would say, "What the heck is Pine Knob, Dad? It's DT." I'm like, "It'll never be DT." And then we finally got it back.
I don't even.
We finally got it back.
You can call it what you want, but it's Pine Knob to all of us, right?
Absolutely. So, we've been friends for 30 years, and, music's always been kind of like important to our friendship, really, right?
Sure.
And the one thing, we've gone on numerous road trips, right? Went to Mardi Gras. It's just me and you following Johnny V and Benny.
Sure, yeah.
But the whole time, I remember...
The year 2000.
Year 2000. It was the year of Cal and Neil. But I remember having my, my book of CDs. We'd find like the perfect ones to listen to on the drive.
Brilliant.
We did Orlando for New Year's Eve the one time, remember? Yeah. And again, just always had that music going. But the one that I always remember was the Kentucky Derby, again in the year 2000, where we went in an RV, us and 4 or 5 other guys. And I'll never forget, the most perfect road trip CD per Details magazine was Sunvolt. And I was like, holy shit, I got that CD. So we put
Sunvolt.
it in. Yeah, hell yeah.
Wow, what a good band.
And the thing with Sunvolt, I mean, you are familiar with Wilco, right? Obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
Just like anyone who's normal should be. And, but before...
Check and see if you're normal.
But before there was Wilco and Sunvolt, it was Uncle Tupelo. And you had Jay Farrar and Jeff Tweedy and Uncle Tupelo, and then they went their separate ways.
Yep.
Jay Farrar started Sunvolt, and Jeff Tweedy started Wilco. And, the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah.
And, of course, we've seen both bands.
Yep.
Sunvolt, was definitely at the Majestic Theater, and then Wilco, we've seen them, numerous times all over.
Where did we see Sunbolt?
It was at the Majestic Theater.
Majestic.
Downtown
Okay,
Detroit,
you just said that.
But
Loved Sunbolt.
that just brings me to, some of the venues we've been to.
Sure.
And the Majestic is, to me, one of the best places. Kind of like that old theater, kind of grimy, dirty type place. Just a stage, a floor, and a huge bar behind you.
Yeah, huge bar.
And it was kind of the place that, the bands, as they're just making it, those are the places they're playing before they even get to like the State Theater or the Fillmore now, or Fox Theater in downtown.
I love that, which I guess would say, what's your, if you, favorite venue to see a band at,
Oh, well, so I guess I would kind of break it out into, first of all, indoor versus outdoor, right? To me, I've always liked kind of seeing those bands before they start making it, right?
Yeah.
So the smaller venues, more intimate, you get really up close with them. So for me, this is one of those ones I'll still call it the State Theater sometimes, but it's the Fillmore down in Detroit now.
Fair enough. I don't think you're wrong. I'm wrong with that.
And the one that sticks out at that venue was probably Dave Matthews Band, was the opening act for Big Head Todd and the Monsters. And
really?
Yeah. And I'll never forget, it cost me $20. And main floor, $20. And it just so happened that night, that show, they flipped roles. So Big Head Todd actually opened up for Dave Matthews. So I ended up being front row center in about a 2,500 person theater, seeing Dave Matthews for the first time.
Dang.
Which to me it was amazing. Other venues, like, I'm not a big arena guy, but of course I'll go to them.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I think LCA, the new Little Caesars Arena, I think they did a pretty good job with it as far as getting it to a place where they can have concerts where it sounds good.
Yeah.
I've seen Lumineers there. I've seen Mumford & Sons.
Little Caesars Arena, right?
Yeah, Little Caesars Arena. Smashing Pumpkins with Jane's Addiction. And actually Tyler, the Creator. I've seen quite a few shows there, and it holds up pretty well. As far as the other ones, I mean, St. Andrews Hall.
Love St. Andrews.
St. Andrews Hall. I mean, so many great shows. I've mentioned Majestic Theater. Then when we talk about outdoor, Pine Knob, it's just iconic, right? 15,000 people. You got the lawn, you got the seats, and then you look at Meadowbrook. It's the same kind of vein, but about half the size, about 7,500 people, right?
Closed and
right.
Good
and then,
for them.
We mentioned earlier, probably one of the coolest places I've ever seen a concert was at Kemba Live in Columbus.
Yeah, Kemba Live is sweet.
It's got good-sized bands, because it's still about 5,000 people. So
yeah, there's a couple, like, places where I don't even want to give it away, where you can get a beer, I won't even disclose that, but there's some places where you can get a beer quicker than the lines.
What about you? What is your favorite place, or maybe some place where you've seen some of those earlier bands or whatever? Where's your favorite place to see a show?
I think I already said it, but St. Andrews.
St. Andrews, yeah.
I think St.
Andrews.
Do
you have one that sticks out at St. Andrews?
I think not obviously, but Rusted Root, Blues Traveler, Rusted Root, Blues Traveler. I think I've seen Rusted Root / Blues Traveler at St. Andrews at least 3 or 4 times a piece. And guess what? Blues Traveler and Rusted Root are great bands. So I think wherever you see them are awesome. But I love St. Andrews. Yeah. St. Andrews Hall is freaking awesome.
I remember going to St. Andrews and actually saw Lou Reed.
Yeah, we saw Lou Reed there.
Okay, yeah, you were with. So do you remember when we showed up at St. Andrews, right?
Yes.
And
I know what you're going to say.
we
didn't plan this.
Nope, we show up, and we're getting there right before the show's about to start. And we park behind the venue.
Yeah.
And as we're walking up, there's the tour bus.
There's the big. I mean, you all know if you've been to St. Andrews Hall, there's the parking lot. And
Yeah, right behind there.
Yeah, right where the tour bus
so
comes in.
we're walking up, and we're like, well, why don't we just hang out here for a minute? And literally, from us about 10 feet away, here comes Lou Reed walking out.
Yep.
And we were just kind of sitting there and like, whatever, it's cool. We're seeing him, and you have all these people signing, right? And remember, he got pissed.
Yes, he got.
He looked at the one guy and he said, "No cameras."
Yep, no pictures.
Yep, no pictures, because they didn't want to have a picture of him signing so that someone could go and sell it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he's done and he walks in the back, right? So we're like, all right, well, fuck it. Let's go. We walk in the front, and by the time we walked in the front doors, remember?
Yeah.
He was already on stage playing. We're like, what the hell did that happen?
Wait a second. We just saw him 10 seconds ago. How is he already?
He was able to walk in faster than us and start playing a song, and then we were able to do that. But
that show, though, I mean, like, God bless his soul, because Lou Reed is awesome. And I know a lot of artists do this, when they have they have to do the teleprompter, and they're, God, that was, I'm not saying it was a sad show at all. It was a freaking awesome show. But you could totally see him looking at the teleprompter, like reading his lines. I'm not saying he had amnesia or dementia or anything, but
the thing with Lou Reed too is like,
can you help me?
No, whenever you'd see him in live, like, he totally sings it differently than the way it was written.
Okay, fair enough.
And you know who else does that all the time is Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction.
All right, thank you.
And I remember in November, this kind of leads into my next topic I want to talk to you about. I went to see Smashing Pumpkins, and the opening act was Jane's Addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And, me and my daughter went there to see the show, and well, because she was super pissed when me, you, and Paul went to see the Pumpkins in Columbus. She wanted to go, and it was kind of a boys' weekend.
It was actually the best show ever.
And then we went to, so me and my daughter, we go to LCA and in Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, and it's the Pumpkins with Jane's Addiction, and they both killed it, right? But I remember her saying that, he doesn't actually sing the songs the way it's supposed to, but that's just Perry Farrell. That's how he does it.
Yeah.
But Lou Reed was the same way.
Yeah.
But so that brings up kind of the next topic I wanted to talk to you about is when you saw a show where, like, the opening act was, in your mind, on par with the main one, right? Who in your mind what show would that be for you?
All right. So we've touched on Wilco, before, Old 97s. Have you guys ever heard of them? All right, you haven't. Old 97s are freaking bomb ass. I think we did. And then Wilco. Old 97s opened up for Wilco. I would almost say the Old 97s freaking were better than Wilco that night.
Yeah.
In general, Wilco is a better band than Old 97s. We get it.
Yeah, but Old 97s.
But that was
the Dallas band. They bring it high energy.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
I think that's what I would say.
Yeah,
the best.
I remember that show. It was at the Majestic.
Yeah, we had a freaking bomb ass time. Yeah,
absolutely.
What about you?
So, the one I was thinking of actually was Wilco as well.
Yeah.
But Wilco was the opener for this one, and it was at Pine Knob in Clarkston, Michigan, and Wilco was the opening band for REM. And,
year? Can you recall?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I would say it was early 2000s.
All right.
And very early, just past probably 2000. And super excited, REM, right? Never seen them before. And I always tell people this: if there's a band that you want to see, you're interested in, and they're coming in concert, go see them, because there's no guarantee they're ever coming back. And that was kind of one of them. REM, I always liked them, but they weren't. I wasn't a huge fan, right? But
sure,
there's so many songs, so I was so excited for that. And then
I love REM, by the way.
I do too. And I like them more now than I probably did back then. And but then when I found out that Wilco was going to be the opening band for him, I was just like, oh my God, does this get any better, right? And the one thing I'll never forget about that show, right? I remember I was, there's like a group of 5 or 6 of us going, and I had to drive there straight from work, and I'm busting ass to get there because I want to see Wilco, and I get there, and I'm sitting, barely in the lawn or whatever, and Jeff Tweedy's playing, and someone in the front row was obviously eating a Subway sub because he stopped playing, and he looks at him and goes, "Are you seriously eating a Subway sub right now while I'm playing?" He goes, "Can't you eat that up there somewhere?" And just tore this person apart. And I'll never forget that. I laughed so hard.
I almost say that poor dude, but guess what? You shouldn't be eating a Subway sandwich.
Absolutely. You're bringing that on yourself at that point, right? Absolutely.
Freaking Tweety.
Yeah, he's great.
I love it.
I know. He is so awesome.
He's a good dude. He is.
I remember
good music.
If anyone's ever in Chicago, hell, I don't even know if he owns the bar anymore, but he used to own that bar called Lounge Axe. Jeff Tweedy did. And I'll never forget going there with a friend and, drinking beers, just holding out hope that he's going to show up and play one of those surprise sets. Well, needless to say, that didn't happen.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
But so what about for you? Do you remember what's the farthest you've ever gone to go see a show, whether on purpose or by chance?
Not this is a surprise because I think we have
we got the same one,
dual answer here, right? We went and saw Ben Harper.
Yep.
Gosh, and the Innocent. I mean, it's Ben Harper.
Ben Harper and the Innocent Criminals.
I don't know if they were.
Yep.
Let's just say Ben Harper's, whatever. And then I think Jack Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It was in San Diego.
San Diego.
And I actually looked up the date. It was August of 2003. And it was me, you, my brother Paul, and our friend Dario.
Yeah.
And we actually ended up going with my Uncle Steve and his wife, my Aunt Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to... It was like the first night we were there, and it was like the University of California, San Diego, out in this open field.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Ben Harper, and I mean, he just tore it up.
That was a really good show, by the way.
Oh my God!
I mean,
and you're right. And it was Jack Johnson. He opened up for him, and also ended up coming out playing a couple of songs.
Right. If you don't, I know you know Jack Johnson, but whatever. Jack Johnson has some good tunes,
No,
but,
Jack Johnson's good.
Yeah.
To me, he's like. He's super talented. He's one of those guys, I think, that a smaller venue, more intimate setting kind of suits him, right?
Sure.
All acoustic,
Yeah.
kind of mellow. So like a big venue, kind of, it's a little big for him.
Ben Harper freaking rocks.
Oh,
Ben Harper rocks
absolutely.
We've seen Ben Harper so many times. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I think so. We saw him there in San Diego. We also saw Ben Harper is in Meadowbrook.
Yes.
Where else we saw him? And you mentioned the Horde Fest earlier. Those concerts would be the best. It was the all-day festival, and I'll never forget it had, I think Ben Harper was there, like Freddie Jones Band, Blues Traveler.
Yeah, Freddie Jones.
Yep, Piece by Piece, and yep.
Good God, Cal.
Kind of, and the Horde Fest, it was great. It was like a bunch of those jam bands, just a good, fun time, right?
Yeah.
I believe that was one of the times also where we went camping.
Yeah.
And where I believe that was, we went camping, and might have been one of the first times you actually met Echon. Our buddy Echon.
Oh, I love Echon.
Hey,
what's up, Echon?
Yeah, give him a shout out. He's actually, we're gonna have him on an episode later.
We might.
Year. Yeah, we'll see. Nah, he'll be on for sure. Coming up. So the one thing I mentioned earlier was if you ever want to see someone, get out and see them, right? Because you never know if they're going to be around anymore. And on our company page, Two Dudes and Killer Tunes, I put a poll out there about bands that you wish you could have seen kind of before the untimely death of a member. Yeah. And I actually, the three that I put out there were Nirvana, because obviously Kurt Cobain, Alice in Chains, Lane Staley, and then Beastie Boys, Adam Yauch, MCA, right? And then the fourth option was, other, just make sure you leave a comment. For me, it was a no-brainer. I never got a chance to see Nirvana, and obviously that was really when, my whole taste of music was really molding, and,
Sure.
that was a huge part of it, right? That whole movement. I was lucky enough to see Alice in Chains at Lollapalooza in '93 with Lane Staley, which was absolutely amazing.
And that was Lollapalooza at Pine
No, it was actually Milan Dragway in Milan, Michigan.
Oh, yeah, a little Milan Dragway, yeah.
And I also got to see the Beastie Boys a few times, one being Lollapalooza in Pine Knob, once at Wings Stadium in Kalamazoo, and then once at the Palace of Auburn Hills.
So let me ask about Alice in Chains at Milan Dragway. How was that? Or actually, what's your recollection, if you will? Then
so it's funny because
were you hammered, or I'm sure you were. It doesn't matter, but do you remember how?
No, absolutely, I do remember that. I remember that the day was like one of those Michigan summer days, right?
Hot.
Where it's like
humid.
Exactly. 95 degrees.
It probably rained
all
earlier,
sunny,
and then it just got super hot.
And then 100% humidity. Yeah. And actually it was Dinosaur Jr. was playing, right?
Dinosaur Jr.
And about 3 songs in, all of a sudden the clouds roll in,
yeah.
thunder and lightning starts, and everyone leaves the stage, and it's shut down for like an hour. Well, then everything starts back up, and Alice in Chains comes on and starts playing. And I will never forget this. A buddy of ours looks over at me and says, "Isn't Alice in Chains going to be pissed that Dinosaur Jr. is playing their songs?" Because he didn't realize that Dinosaur Jr. left and Alice in Chains came on. But thank God that it kind of happened in that order, because Alice in Chains played. And I actually looked up the set list the other day, and I mean, some of the most iconic Alice in Chains songs ever. And they played like 15 songs that day. I mean, for Lollapalooza, which was amazing.
Dang, dude.
And, the other one I mentioned was Beastie Boys, Adam Yauch. And I was always a huge Beastie Boys fan, from their mid-'80s, when I think they opened up for Madonna, right?
Mm-hmm.
After their License to Ill came out. And that one hit me hard, MCA. And I'll never forget, I remember I came home from a road trip, and I was meeting my family for dinner. I came straight from the airport, and I heard it on the radio that MCA had passed away. It's cancer. And I remember sitting at the table before they showed up, and I started crying. Like, I couldn't believe it. This was like one of the people that, like, the bands that I grew up with.
And how old were you at the time?
I was probably mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
And it was just like, because he was such a great guy, you
right.
know? And it was just, it just really hit me.
And was an influence,
Absolutely.
And music you love, yeah.
Especially MCA, you watch it because he was the one that probably partied more than anyone. And, like, he watched his kind of evolution, and so you kind of empathize with that or whatever. Yeah. But, going back to the poll, and I mean, it doesn't have to be one of those, which one would yours be that you wish you could have seen, that you didn't get a chance to?
I was probably too young to see, like, The Who. I mean, I freaking love The Who. The Who, anytime there's a Who song on the radio, I just freaking keep it on there. Whether it's, any freaking Who song. Led Zeppelin, of course, but yeah, they're around. And I always go back to Nirvana, I would love
It's hard not to, right?
I would love to, want to know why? I'm not getting sick of the songs that are on the radio. And they keep playing, I'm playing. But there's probably so much more, if you will. Kind of like the Beatles, too. Like any Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin. They all had more, if you will. More to give, and that's probably why.
No, and it's funny, as you bring those we'll say the old timey ones up, right?
Yeah.
And the one that has always been one I wish we could have seen is obviously the Doors with Jim Morrison. And we did get a chance to see the Doors of the 21st century, right? And which I think it was Ray Manzarek and Robbie Krieger. And it had Ian Ashbury from the Cult.
Was a good freaking concert.
You know, it was cool. You know, you got to see some of the original members playing it. And, you know, Ian Ashbury did a great job singing it, but it's not Jim Morrison, right?
Right.
But it was kind of neat to see that. You know, one of the other ones I've always said is, you know, Grateful Dead. You know, with Jerry Garcia. I was never a big fan of the Grateful Dead.
Sure.
You know, but you go back and it's like, you know, so many of those songs.
Right. And
you know, I saw the other ones, they were called shortly after he had died in Cincinnati. And of all people, Rusted Root opened up for him. You know, so
Rusted Root.
it was a really cool show, but I'm like, oh my God, how good would this show be if Jerry Garcia was still here playing with them, right? So that's why I always say, if there's something you ever want to see, go and see it. Don't wait thinking, oh, I'm going to see him again. I mean, especially when you're talking, man, I really wish I could see the Rolling Stones. I'm like, how much longer are you going to wait for that one? You know? So, now, what about anything on the horizon for you? Any concerts or newer bands that you plan on going to see in the coming months? Or
let's see, not at all. Just kidding. No, of course there's going to be some bands, but oh yeah, Young the Giant. Have you ever heard of Young the Giant? Go ahead.
Absolutely. So that's a big one. Actually, I got my eye on this year or this summer. Mm-hmm. Young the Giant with Milky Chance.
Right.
And I think they're playing Freedom Hill.
Which I've been there.
You know,
good little venue.
I've never been there. I just hear it's kind of like a smaller pine knob, almost like a Meadowbrook.
Yeah, it's like a Meadowbrook, yeah.
But so yeah, Young the Giant and Milky Chance. That's one of those ones where it's like I know quite a bit about both of them, but I'm not a huge fan of either one. It's just one of those things like, can you really have a bad night at a concert during the summertime? No. So to me, that's a big one. What about you? I think I heard you mention something the other day. It's actually, I think, right around your birthday.
At the National.
Yes. At
all right.
The Fillmore, I believe, right?
Gosh darn it. I don't know. They're coming August something.
Yeah, it's about mid-August, somewhere in there.
All right, I'm going to confess right now, The National is one of my freaking favorite bands. If you don't know The National, then I guess you just don't know. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to listen to them. Go ahead if you want to, but...
No, and you know what? The thing about The National, I think they're a Cincinnati band.
Yeah,
And, you know, I've obviously heard their songs. I like them.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones where I've never had to listen to them. I've never seen them live.
Right.
But I did years ago, hell, who knows how long ago, but seeing a documentary about The National that I think one of the brothers from the band members or whatever did the documentary.
Twins.
And
yeah, they're twins, bro.
It was like a really cool documentary, and then I'm like, oh, wow, you know, and I actually started listening to them more and more, and really, I really like the lead singer's voice.
Yeah.
And really, a lot of cool songs.
So, do you want to hear a cool story about The National?
Absolutely.
All right.
That's what we're here for.
So, my friend Keith, we all know Keith. Keith and I were in Royal Oak, and they were playing the Royal Oak Music Theater. I don't know.
No, that's a great venue.
Yeah.
I saw Ben Harper there.
Ben Harper. I didn't have a ticket, right? So, Keith and I were like, let's go see The National. Keith had a ticket, right? So, we're walking around. I'm like, I'm just going to go scalp a ticket, right? So we're walking around. We're walking right down, I don't know whatever street that is, where Royal Oak Music Theater is. And then we're walking around. Tickets, we need tickets, you know. And I look to my left, and guess who's right there? The lead singer of The National.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I'm like, what's up, bro? He's like, what's up? I go, I think you can get me a ticket, right? He goes, yeah, I can get you a ticket. Like, with the nicest dude ever. It was him and the drummer. Oh, my gosh.
That's hilarious.
It was hilarious and awesome. Can you get me tickets? He's like, yeah. And then so he goes, what's your name? I was like, oh, my name's Neil. Neil Williams, and then you got Keith tickets too, and they'll be in the box office. I'll get you ticket. And so we're walking outside. I'm like, this ain't gonna happen. So we went to the bar, and just hoping and praying that these are our tickets, or my tickets at least, Yeah. And we went to the bar, had some drinks, and then went to the box office, supposedly where these where these tickets were, And guess what? They were there.
Oh my God, that's
awesome. He let them there, and with backstage passes too. Woo-hoo.
Nice.
Well, concert was amazing, Keith and I went. I had to, at the end of the show, we had backstage passes, right? At the end of the show, I had to pee so bad. I'm like, Keith, I can't even do it. I have to leave. I left, and then I'm like, after that, I couldn't get back in line for the backstage pass. Keith ended up staying, and he said, "Yeah, dude, I went back there, dude. They were all so cool, and everything."
That's awesome.
So I did not get to.
So that's funny because that reminds me of something. You mentioned the band Old 97s earlier.
Love the Old 97s.
I went to visit a good friend of ours, Mike, up in Seattle. And me and Mike had decided, well, we're going to go spend a couple days in Vancouver. So we drive up to Vancouver, and it was probably spring going into summer because the hockey playoffs are on, right?
Sure.
And me and our buddy Mike were like, we'll go to the bar. We're going to catch the playoff game, and it's like noon, early start. No one's in the bar whatsoever. So me and Mike are sitting up at the bar, we're having some beers, and I look over, and there's this dude in back then I think it was still the Dallas Stars, right? And are they still the Dallas? I don't even know. Yeah, I think they are. Who knows? Anyway, he's in the Dallas Stars jersey, and I look and I'm like, holy shit. That's Rhett Miller from the Old 97s. Mm. So I go over there, and I say, hey, how's it going? And he goes, I just saw you in concert 2 weeks ago at the Majestic. He's like, oh, that's awesome, And I'm like, yeah, and I'm seeing you in Vancouver out of the blue. That's crazy, And he's like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. And then... talking or whatever, and I don't want to be a fanboy, so I'm like, all right, well, it's nice meeting you. Hey, good luck to the Dallas, And then we go back and sit down, and, we're having a couple beers, and I look at my buddy, I'm like, I literally just saw him 2 weeks ago in Detroit. I'm halfway across the world, pretty much, at this point in Vancouver. I happen to see him. You think he could float us a couple tickets? Oh, well, at least I got to meet him. He was a cool guy, though.
Right? He could have at least said, hey.
Right, absolutely.
Need anything? Backstage? Nothing?
Right, yeah. Not even a good story, right? That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, that's a sweet story.
But, so going back to shows this summer, obviously the other one I was looking at was Beck with opening band Phoenix, which... Phoenix is kind of obscure, but they have a song 1901, and then they have another one. Really couldn't even tell you the name of it. But to me, it's one of those times where at least you know a couple songs, But Beck,
gosh, I think I almost heard a new song by Beck recently. I think does he have a new album? I don't know. If it wasn't, I'm like, what? Oh my
He's
gosh,
on tour. He
this
probably
song is awesome.
does. But the funny thing about Beck is I've only seen him one time, right? And it was my freshman year in college, and they announced it on the radio that he's playing the Detroit Science Center. Now, Neil, you're familiar with the Detroit Science Center. Some of our listeners may not be. But
I'm not even familiar, but let him tell.
Let's put it this way. Before that Beck concert, the last time I was at the Detroit Science Center was for a field trip in elementary school because they have all these exhibits, you touch that weird ball and your hair goes crazy.
Not for Beck.
But it costs $5. We show up there. They have a stage literally amongst all these exhibits. So there's people touching that ball with their hair everywhere. He's playing, and he just started getting, gaining that popularity because Loser came out. And he was probably like a 19, 20-year-old punk at that point, just like I was. And I'll never forget, you could tell he had a few pops, right? And, it took him like 3 times to finally start Loser and play it all the way through before he could finish it.
Yeah, you said that.
But and then you look at now, right? And just his whole catalog there's so many good songs there. And the one thing, I actually just downloaded this or whatever on Spotify a little bit ago, but it was when Lou Reed was inducted to the Hall of Fame as a solo artist. And Beck actually sang Satellite of Love.
Satellite.
And doing the background part of it was the lead singer from Fun. Remember that band?
Yeah.
Which I don't even know what his name was,
Yeah.
but I tell you what.
Not so fun, but whatever.
But check it out. Awesome song. But that's another one that I'm definitely looking forward to this summer.
Satellite of... I watched it for a
Satellite of
little
Love.
while.
Used to watch it. Used to watch
things
it
on TV.
Satellite of Love.
Our CD will come out later. Whatever.
But no, that's what I was thinking about. And obviously, as we have more episodes, we'll talk about more concerts that are coming up this summer. We've already talked with a lot of our guests. Mm-hmm. We got a bunch of things already lined up.
Yeah, there'll be some guests,
and we're definitely going to continue working on this. I think that I've had an absolute blast with episode 1. Again, 2 dudes, killer tunes. Hopefully you guys found it entertaining and will join us for the episodes to come up here in the future.
Yeah, and if not, whatever. Obviously, you probably suck.
But no, it's been great. It's been fun, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of this season and getting some of our guests on and just talking about live music and catching up with people.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna do. Talk about music, and I'm gonna catch up with freaking friends that we haven't seen in a while. How about that?
Yep, sounds good. All right, Neil. Thanks, bro.